I think why strength is a good substitute is because I think for weight loss, there's reasons you want to lose weight, and I think strength training can fill those gaps, which I think is also really important. Where you want to lose weight because you want to feel confident in your body, or at least not ashamed of your body. It can be, kind of be either way. And strength training is like, well, now you can like deadlift your body weight, and like that's pretty cool. So now you're confident in your body for like a different reason. Or you want to feel healthy, or you want to feel good in your body. It's like, well, if everyday tasks have become easier now, that's like one way of feeling good in your body, is now it's like your body's not holding you back. Now it's actually like the driving force for everything that you do. So in my opinion, like for the people who do switch their focus to strength specifically, I think a lot of the motives that people have for weight loss can be resolved through getting stronger. Whether you look better is often like very subjective. It's like, do I look better than I did before? Where I think one of the benefits of strength is that like you don't really need me to tell you that you're improving. You can kind of see it, whether it's I was dumbbell rowing 10 pounds and now I'm dumbbell rowing 30 pounds, or it's
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of A Plate Full of Insights, hosted by Revive Wellness Radio. I'm one of the hosts at Revive, Brandon Gruber. I'm one of the dietitians and manager of Revive. And I'm so grateful to be blessed to have a lovely, one of our first guests on the podcast, if you can believe it or not. We've been doing this podcast for over a year now, and it's only been our team that has joined the podcast. And for the first time, I'm bringing on a guest that is not within our team, and I couldn't be more happy to have the first guest be one of my friends from one fellow Canadian who is Mark Breeden. Mark, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I'll intro the topic of the podcast. But tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, listen, thanks for having me. I think we've been following each other online for years now. It's been a while. You weren't like, I think you weren't a manager yet before that. You were a dietitian. I've seen you move along. It's cool to see. But yeah, so I am an online personal trainer, and I think what makes me a little bit different than other trainers is I have what's known as a weight neutral approach to training. So I don't have weight loss, or I don't have any, weigh-ins, before and after photos, body measurements. None of that is included in my training. My training is very focused on, I want you to be strong, I want you to live a healthy life, and I want you to have wins that are not just about the weight on the scales. I think often in training, people, that's kind of like their primary focus, where I've kind of removed all of that, and I just want you to be, strong, healthy, happy. I want you fulfilled in your training, and I want you to do training that makes sense for your life. So that's kind of I would say, like the big difference between like me and maybe some other trainers you've seen online.
Love it. Thanks to have you, Mark. And yes, we've known each other. I can't remember the first time that we connected, but we've both evolved quite a bit since we first connected, and really cool to have this connection that is existed only because of these types of things, be it social media, podcast, whatever else. So it's good to continue that, which leads me down the road of introducing the topic for today. And one of the things that Mark and I thought would be cool to talk about, which involves both of our philosophies and how we like to approach working with people, is why should you train to build strength instead of training with the sole purpose of losing weight? So very, very relevant topic, very timely topic. This is everything that you're about, like you just mentioned. And I think a lot of people nowadays are looking for this type of an approach. So it's awesome to have practitioners available, doing work in this area that you can be confident that you're not going to be taken down the path that you don't want to be taken down. So I'm super excited to talk about this. So one question that I have that I'm sure people listening or watching are curious about is why did you start taking this approach in working with clients? What got you interested in going down this path as opposed to a more traditional approach as a trainer?
So I definitely didn't start there. I don't think there's actually a lot of trainers who start weight neutral. I think most of us originally start as a weight loss coach, often because we feel like we need to do that. Where like it's kind of like, and even today when I tell people, oh, I'm a personal trainer, but I don't work in weight loss, that people will have questions like, wait, what is your job even? Like still it's a very uncommon niche. So the main reason that I got started in this over time is that when I worked with people with the sole focus of weight loss or changing their appearance, or they want to look different, they don't like how they look and they want to change that. A very emotional journey. It's very tough. Lots of ups and downs. The scale can often like dictate your self-worth. Weight will often fluctuate, and that's a very tough challenge. And it's of my opinion that personal training, we can't really guarantee weight loss as well. That's like a whole other thing that I'm happy to talk about, and why I don't think it's really the right approach for trainers. But what I noticed is that the clients who were focused on strength, like they want to do their first pull up, or they want to be strong in and out of the gym, they one loved training way more. They're excited to train. Training was more about what their body could do as opposed to what it was supposed to look like. It was easier for them to stick with training because they could see more consistent results. And I think as well is that like weight loss, whether you look better is often like very subjective. It's like, do I look better than I did before? Where I think one of the benefits of strength is that like you don't really need me to tell you that you're improving. You can kind of see it, whether it's I was dumbbell rowing 10 pounds and now I'm dumbbell rowing 30 pounds, or it's, hey, like things that used to be difficult in my life are now no longer difficult. Like they're just things that I do now, very low effort. And I think for me, and this was like a process over time, like I would say I was probably a weight loss trainer or interested in that kind of stuff for like the first few years as a trainer. And then I moved over to a weight neutral approach because I was like, okay, like people like it better. I can guarantee these results better. They're still getting healthier, they're still getting stronger, they're still seeing it in their everyday life, but we don't have to do things like weigh-ins, which can often be uncomfortable for people. Um, and kind of like I said before, like unfortunately, personal trainers, in my opinion, can't guarantee long-term weight loss without rebound. Like it's been pretty well studied at this point that, and I'm sure you've I don't know if you've talked about this on the podcast, but like yes, people can lose weight, but really like keeping it off is a big challenge. And as a trainer, I didn't feel comfortable with that. Like that was something that like if someone comes to me and there's like, hey, can you help me lose 50 pounds and keep it off? I don't know if any trainer can actually guarantee that, but I can make you stronger and I can make you feel good about being strong as well, where I can start to shift the focus on it's no longer about what your body looks like. It starts to become like what your body is capable of, which, in my opinion, is just like a much better journey.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I've told so many clients in that come to me and looking for an outcome related to weight, body composition, muscle, body fat, you name it. And it can be entrenched in different things, but ultimately outcomes in that realm, and really many outcomes in at least the world of nutrition and diet, there's such a level of unpredictability. There's such a level of I guess risk of if you go down this path and you have really good intent, who's to say that you could have an excellent journey, see all kinds of progress health wise, functionally, like you mentioned, all those metrics and all those things that you can perceive, strength, endurance, any of those things. But I've had numerous experiences with people wherein, uh, by their own doing, because I don't mandate these types of weigh-ins or body composition measurements or any of the sort, but it is a thing that can throw off your journey in a way. Like, oh, you're doing good. You do a weigh-in, the outcome on the scale wasn't what you were hoping for, and then you just lose sight of all the other positive things and wins that have happened since however long you've been on the journey for.
Takes away from the other wins. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is unfortunate, but the reality.
Yeah, no, it's not, which is why I don't have it really at all, because I think the people who often work with me are either people who don't have weight loss goals at all, so it's like why bother? But also for some people, they just want the weight on the scale to have less value in their life. I think like because like kind of like you said, you can get all these other wins. You're doing great, like objectively doing like a great job. You're doing, and then you step on the scale. It's either not as low as you want it to be, or it's higher, and then you feel like, well, what was all of this for? And for me, just removing the listen, like we're not going to do weigh-ins at all. Like it's just not going to talk about it. I'm never going to mention anything about aesthetics or like what people look like. Honestly, I think it's weird as a healthcare professional for me to like comment on my clients' bodies. It happens in personal training, but it's like very weird. Like to me, it's like very odd, and would not be okay. And
When you think about it, like, yeah, like when you think about how, like, when you just back up and you're like, what's actually happening here on the surface, and you pick it apart, it is odd. Like, it kind of is. Like when you look, it's a norm in society, but when you look at it with that critical lens, you're just like, what's the point of this? What is this doing?
it always felt like inappropriate to me, the idea that I would like comment anything really, like positively, negatively about who I'm working with. It's just like this is not like that. It didn't seem okay with me. Like, and so, um, but it happens in personal training because a lot of personal training stuff is very like aesthetics focused. So often there's conversations about that. Um, I'll never do it. I just think I know it's just too uncomfortable for me. I would say it's like inappropriate, and like there's no other help. Like if your chiropractor commented on your body, it would be inappropriate. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know why personal trainers get the pass on that one. Um, yeah, it's odd. It's awkward. Yeah.
So when you have clients that you work with, and either they are upfront aligned with that approach, and then maybe they're battling with things in the back of their minds due to what they've experienced in the past, or they come to you and are open to a weight neutral approach, but they're still challenging you with, oh, aren't we going to do weigh-ins? Like, isn't this the thing we're going to do? How do you handle those conversations with people? Because you're kind of battling with societal norm in a way, and you're also the things that people may have done in the past or are used to. I mean, it's going to come up at some point. So how do you navigate that conversation with people?
Yeah, there's definitely a few ways of doing that. So one, I think just like being upfront with my approach is good. Like if someone works with me, I have a conversation with them and I'm like, hey, just so you know, like this is my approach. Like there are no weigh-ins at any point. Like there are no, and so they kind of know like there's not like a secret weigh-in happening, 3 months from now or anything along those lines, and they kind of know what I'm about. So that helps a lot. I think as well as that like people who work with me, it's not like you're going to work with me and then a month later not care. I'm kind of like a stepping stone to that process. And what I try and do is like, well, let's talk about your other wins and make them the sole priority. So if I notice that you're lifting more weight than you were before, I'm going to bring that. It's like, hey, like you're noticeably stronger than we started. Like that's awesome. They will come to me and say like, hey, like I used to not be able to bring all my groceries in at once. Now I can, and it actually is easy. So then like we celebrate those wins. And I think really prioritizing the non-scale victories, I think as most people would see them, goes a long way, because it's being like, oh yeah, like I don't, what do I weigh? I don't even know, but like I'm doing better in the gym. I'm more comfortable in the gym. I'm like clearly getting stronger. I couldn't do pull-ups before. Now I can. That's pretty cool. And I think, which is also why there are some weight neutral trainers who they don't have a focus after their focus is kind of like not weight loss is like how I would describe it. The reason that I advocate for strength at the same time is because when people don't focus on weight loss anymore, sometimes that's the reason they never go back to the gym, because that was their primary focus. That was their like, I was there for weight loss, and it's like, okay, now I'm not about weight loss, but now I have no reason to go. And that's not great either. And so why I advocate for switching to strength training is because we need a new reason to go. We need like, now I'm not doing these dumbbell rows to tone my arms. Now I'm doing these dumbbell rows because I want to have a strong back. That's kind of the reason that, so now we have a reason to get back in there, because I want people to focus less on the weight on the scale But I also still want people to exercise. Like I still want people to train regularly. And so I think it's important to, if we're not going to talk about weight, we gotta talk about something else. Like that's the yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, you got to find a different purpose. If the original purpose for whatever reason in whatever flavor it was around weight or appearance or aesthetic or body composition or whatever, and you take that away, and it kind of sounds sharp is take it away, but if that purpose is not driving the why behind why you're doing it, and there's nothing, and you don't think about, well, what else is there, and you just go into the journey hoping that you'll run into it, that might not happen, and then you just lost all steam and momentum, and then you're not going to have it, so you're not going to have a desire to continue it. So if you intentionally replace it from the get-go or as early as you can, then you can build on that new purpose, that new why you're doing this. And I would imagine it would kind of snowball in a way, because then you can build on it from there, as opposed to it just kind of hoping to happen. And I mean, not having a plan, or not having a purpose or an intent. I mean, you can apply that to literally anything that we would do as humans, and it just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and I think I think why strength is a good substitute is because I think for weight loss there's reasons you want to lose weight, and I think strength training can fill those gaps, which I think is also really important. Where you want to lose weight because you want to feel confident in your body, or at least not ashamed of your body. It can be, kind of be either way. And strength training is like, well, now you can like deadlift your body weight, and like that's pretty cool. So now you're confident in your body for like a different reason. Or you want to feel healthy, or you want to feel good in your body. It's like, well, if everyday tasks have become easier now, that's like one way of feeling good in your body, is now it's like your body's not holding you back. Now it's actually like the driving force for everything that you do. So in my opinion, like for the people who do switch their focus to strength specifically, I think a lot of the motives that people have for weight loss can be resolved through getting stronger. And I also I think this should be something I want to make clear as well. When I say stronger, I don't mean like become a power lifter or become a bodybuilder or anything along those lines. Like I'm saying like you're stronger for yourself. You're stronger than you were 3 to 6 months ago, but like not in like a competitive way, like strong for yourself. Like I think that's and like most of the people that I work with are not competitive lifters or ever will be or want to be, and that's totally fine. So when I say strength, I'm not trying to make everyone, you know, the next regional powerlifter of their division. Like I want people like they're doing it for themselves, which I think is also really really important. Because it's not about becoming an athlete. It's about becoming stronger for yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think there's any number of things that you could face in a conversation with somebody that you're trying to figure out motivation and purpose and intent and goals. And if all of those things in theory, and I agree with you, that could be if you have strength at the forefront, all the other pieces will fall into place. Um, but sometimes, I mean, sometimes it just you just gotta take the small win. And yeah, you're not going to become, I mean, sometimes I talk to some of my athletes, some of the people that I work with, athletes or not, and have a conversation with them about what being an athlete means and what are you aiming for. That's a different conversation. Um, but yeah, playing a little bit in the gray area of like, you don't have to go from here to, yeah, power lifter, which sometimes is uncomfortable because we're in this realm of it's fuzzy and gray and it's not super clear what we're aiming for. But I think it's important to know that there is ways that you can objectively measure what you're doing if your goal is strength and not weight. Because people are like, oh, if I'm not measuring weight, what am I measuring? But there's still things to measure.
And it tracks along the way, which is also like I think underrated, is that like um you don't have to take my credit. You don't have to, like, I don't have to be the one to tell you you're getting stronger. They tell me. Like they're like, I started with 10 pounds in this exercise. Now I'm doing 20, 30, 40. I couldn't do push-ups before, and now I can do them from the ground, and that's really cool. Like these are, not only is it you get to do cool things, but you can see the progress the whole time, where like things that were hard are now getting easier and they slowly get easier over time. And then 3 to 6 months later, you're like, and I will say that like people who, we should talk about building a plan as well, but like if you follow like a real plan and are consistent with training, people get stronger a lot faster than they would expect. Like I would say, I've had some people's 2 year goal happen in like 6 months, like stuff like that. That I think is like when you're doing actual strength training and you're like relatively consistent with it, with not being perfect but consistent, that people can accomplish a lot more than they thought they were going to. That's like a very common experience that I've seen.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, if there's less things now, not to say that, if you swap focusing on weight loss with focusing on strength, that all of your difficulties mentally are just going to vanish. You're still going to have those challenges, but I think having less components built into the journey that have such a high risk of derailing you. In what I mean by this is that if every time you went to work with your trainer, there was that risk of, oh my, if we're going to do a weigh-in today, or if you were doing weigh-ins and then yourself, and there was a chance every time that you did that the outcome wouldn't be going in the right direction, because again, we're in unpredictable physiology of humans land where it's unpredictable. Then there's more stress with the journey. There's more, not only stress with everything, but like, oh, is this going to impact what I'm doing next week, the week after? So if you were to generalize this into, try and decrease the things that are going on that are introducing stress to your journey, that will then negatively impact progress, enjoyment, etc. In theory, everybody would be like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. What do we have to do here? It's no different. It's the same thing. So, of course, if you have less of that happening, you're going to be more consistent. You're going to enjoy it more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Before you know it, you can crush a 2 year goal in 6 months. Makes total sense.
Yeah, and I think even for people who aren't ready to fully like, okay, I'm doing weight neutral now, totally fine. It's a process. I didn't do it right away, and that's completely okay. Adding some non-scale goals, I think, goes a long way. Like if you're going to do the weight loss thing, fine, I get it, understand, no judgment here. But add other goals as well, so that way when the aesthetic stuff isn't going well, you have other victories. It's like, yeah, but I'm like stronger now, or yeah, like now I can do these cool things. And so because when it's all just on the weight on the scale or toning your body or whatever, um that can get hard, because that can become like a pretty emotional journey. People stop training for that reason, or like training becomes way less fun when it's all about like burning calories or toning this, or like, oh, I have this I need to get rid of or whatever. If you can add some non-scale goals to work towards as well, when the aesthetic stuff doesn't isn't going well, you have other things that you can, you're like, yeah, but I did this and I did this. So like, things are, I have things to positively look at my training. So I think that would be, yeah, that's what I would recommend.
I love that, because not everybody's going to be immediately at that point. And then if you're interested or not, there's nothing to lose with adding in those non-scale metrics, goals, measurements, things that you can monitor that will give you another idea of if you're making progress or winning or not. Um, Instead of, and I've had this experience with clients, because it happens, where you come to a point where the your body composition isn't changing the way that you were hoping that it would. And then at that point, you got to try and find a different metric that you can use to help measure progress and success, because now you've hit a wall of some sort. But if you do that from the beginning, I would bet that those non-scale metrics may end up taking priority over the other ones, because they are more enjoyable potentially.
They make training more fun.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And there's even people that I'm working with now who like still care about the weight on the scale, but they want to care less. And the way that you care less is that you add other things to care about. that's kind of the, yeah. So I'm kind of the, I don't just have people I work with who like don't care at all. I also have people who like they care, but they want to, they have other things they want to focus on as well, and they don't want every moment in the gym to be about like getting rid of this or adding this or like whatever. Like they want their body, they care about their body in other ways, and so that I'm kind of like, I'm a stepping stone to becoming more weight neutral.
Love it. So when you mentioned plan earlier, I think it's good to give the listeners and watchers, what have you, a bit of a visual of if somebody wanted to work with a coach trainer, whether it's in any realm, but with what you do and the journey that you take your clients down in using this approach, um, what does it usually look like? What does the start usually look like? Because then people can get a bit of an idea of not only what it may be like if people wanted to work with you, but then if they wanted to try this approach themselves, even on their own, what are some logical steps that you can go through?
Yeah, so I think if we're talking like the goal is strength, there are, so I think everyone should have a plan of some kind. I think that's kind of like the first thing that I'll say is that random workouts I think are fine for exploration, and they're fine if you want to try out new things. But if the goal is I want to be stronger 3 months from now, 6 months from now, having a plan is just going to make that much easier. And ideally one with like your goals and training level in mind. I think that's like very, very key. Um, Random workouts get random results at the end of the day. You might get stronger, you might not. Yeah, and I think this is actually kind of like a big difference between meal plans and training plans is that like training plans work really well, especially if they're made right, if they're true strength training. And when I say true strength training, because there's a lot of things online that pretend to be true strength training, I'm talking like sets, reps, rest periods between exercises, focusing on core movement patterns. There's a lot of crazy things online. Um, Unique does not always mean good. Let's start with that. And that focusing on core movements, squatting, deadlifting, pushing, pressing, that kind of stuff is going to be the priority. Lifting slightly more weight each week is going to be a really big thing you want to focus on. Um, your program should have like actual, like basically you should go in the gym and there should be a thing that tells you what exercises you're doing for what sets and what reps. That to me is like the base level of what an actual strength training program is. It should have rest periods between sets as well. So some programs will have you do these 7 exercises in a row. I would say you're not so much training strength, you're training something else at that point. And if there's some super crazy stuff in there, it's probably like a lot of the fitness world tries to be unique almost to its detriment, because the basics and learning the basics really well actually are just they're very solid. Like they make strong lifters. Like people who just focus on squatting get very strong legs. People who focus on deadlifting, strong full body, the whole thing. So I think that's what you want to look for in a training program. If you can get one made for you, I think that's like the ideal because there's different programs at different training levels. At a minimum, if you're a beginner, don't use an expert program. If you're an expert, don't use a beginner program. I think that's also a big one as well. Um, yeah, I think that would be the kind of like the base of like what a strength training program is. And if I would recommend getting one because I've had it myself where like people have been like, oh yeah, I've been training for years, but I just go in the gym and I try out new things. And they work with me for 6 months and they're like, yeah, I got more results in 6 months than I did in 3 years of random workouts. Like it happens. Like they truly like having a structure, having a plan, and the plan can change and you don't need to do the plan perfectly. Like you can miss workouts, you can modify the training over time. That's totally fine. But I think having a structured training plan, you're just going to see results way faster than like any amount of random workouts would do.
Yeah, and random random workouts get random results. Oh, that's a good line. Love that line. Um, yeah, I think that's an important piece to remember because a lot of times I hear that from clients, and there's not much I can do about it. It's outside of my scope, but I've definitely heard that. I've been exercising for X number of years, months, what have you. I'm not seeing results, whatever the results may be. And but the unfortunate thing is that in my mind, I'm like, oh, I wonder what your plan looks like if you're using a plan at all. Um, but there's a limited amount of what I can do in those scenarios, of course, because I'm not trained in that realm. But uh, picking it apart, making sure that it's actually working for you, as opposed to just you know doing random things, uh, may be in fact the thing that could help you progress faster. And I think one of the pieces that I also caught that you mentioned that I think is important for everybody to maybe go back and I don't know how many minutes that it was and re-listen to is that the basics. Time and time again, I hear from practitioners that are in this realm that are doing really good work with people and making progress with people, having an impact, is focusing on basics, is not necessarily unique and flashy and cool and trendy, is mostly exactly that. It is usually marketing. It's not always going to be geared towards something that's going to truly help you. The basic stuff, most cases, is also easier and more sustainable and probably will give you more results, yet is boring. So sometimes not the most exciting thing to do.
I mean, you can make it fun and do variations of exercises, but yeah, like when I think about who are really strong people, it's not because they do the super secret exercise that only they know about. It's that they're really good at squatting and they've been squatting for a long time and they do different versions of the squat to keep it interesting and keep getting stronger, and they'll change the sets and reps and all that kind of stuff. But they take the basic core movements that how people move, and they've just learned to be really strong in those movements. I would say there's a lot of stuff is online. If it's really unique or you're like, oh, I've never seen this before, there might be a reason you've never seen it before, because the other trainers looked at it and were like, this is a little silly. We're not going to do this. We're going to stick to the stuff that we know works. Um, I want to mention as well that I think, just to add on to like what a real plan is, um, workouts should not always change from like week to week or day to day. I think is also really valuable, where if you come from like the boot camps or the group classes or whatever it might be, you're probably used to like every workout is like a new adventure where it's like different exercises, focus, etc. Strength training actually has a lot of repetition to it. Like it has a lot of like, in week 1 we're going to do just to throw a random workout, we're going to do squatting, deadlifting, leg press, seated hamstring curl could be a workout as like an example. Week 2 is going to be those exercises, but 5 pounds more. Week 3 is going to be those exercises and maybe like 10 pounds more. And like, not, it does change over time, but like there should be repetition, because part of strength training is you're building a skill. And like any skill, it requires a repetition. Like right now, my wife is Nepali. I'm trying to learn Nepali, and I'm not randomly doing different languages throughout. I'm just learning Nepali over and over again and going over the same words.
Oh, great analogy. Love that.
Yeah. And so in strength training is no different. Like, how do you become good at squatting, or how do you become good at pull-ups? Is like, well, you're doing pull-ups or different pull-up exercises, twice a week. That's kind of and then you do that for a long time, and then you get better at pull-ups, and then you can do a pull-up is like kind of and so when you're looking for plans, also like if you see them like, oh, are they doing the same thing over and over again? That might not act that might actually be good. And too much variation can just lead to like, it's like you're learning a new subject. It's like you wouldn't do like math one week and then like science next week, and then like, it's just like it's not really how strength training works.
And then ask yourself, why am I not getting better at math? I haven't done it since last month. Yeah. And I think that may be reassuring to some people too, in that like if there is repetition with good strength training programs, it may kind of quash people's, I don't know, hesitance with doing such repetition, because people may think, oh, it's so repetitive, I need to change it up because or else I'm not getting better. Like there's a temptation to change and randomize and overcomplicate, because that feels like what you need to do in order to get better. A lot of times people would maybe I don't want to generalize, but doing the same thing again and again and again, sometimes people may be like, this is so, I know how to do this. I've done this before. What's the point? Let's do something new. But everybody listened to Mark in saying that repetition is good. And you can spread this across many different concepts, but I think it's important to recognize that there's a reason for it, and there's purpose behind that repetition. You don't have to, yeah, which is good, right? Because less complicated approaches, again, back to what we talked about before, sustainability, consistency, enjoyment. Like, you're going to get better at it, because how could you not? And it's just.
Well, that I was going to mention that, like, yeah, repetition is like, that's how you, like, again, like, this is how you can tell you're getting better. Where if you constantly change exercises, it actually is hard to tell if you're improving. Whereas, like, if you're repeating week after week, you can tell, like, oh yeah, like I started squatting in week 1 and now I'm on week 6 and now I'm lifting more weight for more reps and I can squat deeper. And it's actually very obvious that you're improving, as opposed to, like, if you're doing, week 1 is squats, week 2 is overhead press, week 3 is rows, and then you're like, are you improving? Like, I don't know, I just keep doing random, different stuff. So it's actually, like, kind of hard to tell. So didn't mean to interrupt you there, but yeah, just want to add that.
No, that's good, man. That's good. Are you improving? I don't know. Say, oh, that's good. Love it. Love this. Is there any other points? We've touched on many different areas. I feel like we could talk for hours about this. I literally say that every single podcast episode that I'm in, because we could babble for so long and touch on every single thing. But in the context of training for strength as opposed to training for weight loss, is there any other key piece that you can think of that would be important for everybody listening / watching to know about, or perhaps how you approach it in that realm? That is good to know.
Yeah, no, I think one key thing is that you're never too old to start strength training. I think that's, like, an important one as well, is that, like, actually the majority of the people I work with are 30s, 40s, 50s, sometimes 60s. My oldest client ever was 91. So it's actually like, I don't want people to think that, like, oh, I'm this age, therefore I can't strength train anymore. Like, I've worked with people who started training in their 40s and 50s and have gotten stronger, seen, like, noteworthy results, like, and love training now, and strength training is just, like, part of their life. So I don't want you to think that you're too old for that. I think that's, like, the first thing as well. Um, Second thing is, give it a real shot. I think, in of the people I've worked with, I would say they start noticing they're improving somewhere in the month 2 to month 3 is where they really start to see, like, oh yeah, like, they're getting better, like, they're improving on their own. And so I would say, like, if you're consistent with training with a good program, you can still make mistakes along the way. Um, you will become stronger almost for sure.
Good key pieces there. One thing we again didn't touch too much on, because it's not the sole purpose of the topic of today's episode, but a unique piece about how you work with clients is that your business is fully online. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It used to be a mix, but now I've been online fully for 4 or 5 years now. Yeah.
So just because we're here, can you give the folks just a brief insight into if you're working with an online trainer like yourself, which I love, by the way. It's very much more accessible. In our business at Revive, we, of course, since the restrictions related to the pandemic years ago lifted, opened our office back up, we still see 85% of our clientele is still virtual and online, which is not really surprising to me. But I know a lot of people haven't had much experience in working with personal trainers online. So, can you just very briefly touch on what that experience is like? And also, if they want to work with you, we might as well segue into that part about how they can find you too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I know online is a little bit different. I think you and I both responded to the same Threads post about someone saying online training wasn't real training.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Good times. We just, so yeah, so online training is a little bit different. But basically, how my version works is, so I give you the program, sets, reps, exercises. I give you a video of each exercise so that there's no guesswork as to like what your form is supposed to look like. Like you get the full plan. You're going into the gym knowing exactly what you're doing. So that's, I set it up. I check in twice a week just to make sure things are going well. I encourage the people I work with, like they can message me whenever. Like if they have a question, I usually get back to people like within the day. Um, and that, I'll get just, if you message me at 4 a.m., I might not respond right away, but like I'm pretty good at getting back to people like within the day. And then I'll update the program on like a week to week basis. People, if they have questions, I encourage them to ask me questions. If they want me to see, like if they have a video, hey, like here's my squat, they can send me that. I can give my critiques. I'm not looking for anything Instagram worthy. I'm just kind of looking for like, let's check out the form, see what's going well, what we can improve. And then yeah, I just kind of work with them online. They can, what's nice about online as well is you're not trying to schedule your appointments with like their time, where they can kind of go work out whenever it makes sense for them. So if they want to work out early in the morning, like it's not like I have to be there or anything along those lines. Or we got to find the time when I'm free, when they're free, and like that whole thing. So I find it works really well for people who just want to work out in their own time, and maybe they've got a busy schedule, or they've got kids that ruin appointments all the time, and that's kind of like who I end up working with as well. But yeah, that's how I work with people online. I've been doing that for I think 6 years now, 5.5, something along those. And I think yeah, it's been great. It's been a blast. I love online training. Personal training in person has its place too, but that's I've shifted at this point. If people have questions about my training or they want to get training from me, what I would recommend is like I always like meeting people first just to make sure that like I'm a good fit for what their training goals are. So I'll sit down with people for like a 20-30 minute Zoom call. We'll talk about your goals. I'll talk about how my training works. We'll make sure we're a good fit kind of before anything starts. They can message me on Instagram if they're interested. They can send me an email. Really, it all goes to my phone. So you can apply on my website, or you can send me a DM, or send me an email, and I will probably get to it within the day. Yeah.
Love it. And we put Mark's handle on the video there. If my lovely team at Revive has edited a version of this that doesn't show that on the screen, we'll make sure to put those links accordingly in description box, caption, what have you, wherever this video ends up, whichever platform. We'll make sure that you can find Mark so that you can have a chat with him, or at least give him a follow so you can see what he's about, because I follow him on, I don't know, pretty much every platform there is. And if not, I'm going to probably double check that after we stop recording this. But a lot of cool insights, a lot of little things. If because this is a phenomenal approach. I love people that are in this world doing this type of work in this type of way. It's amazing. So it was awesome, super awesome to have you on the podcast, Mark. I hope we can have you on again. As we were talking today, I just thought of ideas for other conversations we could have down the road, and I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point. But for now, it's been a blast, and I appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and have this conversation.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. Happy to come back. We can talk about anything training, or if people have questions after listening to this episode, like I'm happy to come back on and answer those questions. I would love to come back.
Love it. Awesome. So we'll wrap there. Everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching as always. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Let us know any feedback if you have any thoughts about the episode, if you want a different topic related to this, or if this sparked another idea, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. For now, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.